I am 28 years old, and my name is Anna. The day I got married to Mark was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Everyone tells you that. They say it will be a blur of happiness, a beautiful dream you will remember forever. They do not tell you what happens when that dream turns into a nightmare right in front of everyone you have ever known. They do not prepare you for the moment when the music stops and all you can hear is the sound of your own heart breaking. The morning started perfectly. My mother fussed over my dress, her eyes misty. My best friend Sarah, who is also 28, was my maid of honor. She kept making me laugh, calming my nerves. She handed me glasses of water and made sure I ate a little something, even though my stomach was full of butterflies. The sun was shining. Everything felt right. It felt like the universe was smiling on us, on me and Mark. Mark, my Mark, who was 32 and the man I was going to spend the rest of my life with. He was kind and charming, and he made me feel safe. I loved him more than I had ever loved anyone. We had been together for 3 years. He had told me all about his first marriage. It was a mistake, he had said. They were too young. Her name was Clara, and he rarely spoke of her. When he did, it was with a sad shake of his head. He said she was a troubled person, someone who had a hard time letting go of the past. He said the divorce had been difficult but was finalized years ago. He was free, and he had chosen me. I believed him. I had no reason not to. His story was consistent, and his love for me felt so real. I remember walking down the aisle, my father on my arm. I saw Mark waiting for me at the altar, and he had tears in his eyes. My own eyes welled up. This was it. This was the beginning of our forever. The ceremony was beautiful. We said our vows, the words feeling heavy and true in the quiet church. We exchanged rings. The minister pronounced us husband and wife. Mark kissed me, and the world felt like it was spinning in the most wonderful way. Our friends and family cheered. I felt nothing but pure, unfiltered joy. The reception was at a lovely old country house with big gardens. Everything was decorated just as I had imagined. White flowers, soft lights, the gentle hum of happy conversation. We made our entrance and everyone clapped. We sat at the head table, holding hands. I looked around at the faces of all the people we loved, all of them smiling at us. My parents looked so proud. His parents, who had always been a little reserved but polite, were also smiling. Everything was perfect. We had our dinner, the speeches were made. My father's speech was sweet and emotional. Sarah's was funny and heartfelt. Mark's best man told embarrassing stories from their college days. Then it was time for our first dance. The band started playing our song, a slow, romantic melody that always made me feel like I was the only person in the world for him. Mark led me to the dance floor. He pulled me close. "I love you, Anna," he whispered in my ear as we swayed to the music. "You have made me the happiest man in the world." "I love you too," I whispered back, resting my head on his shoulder. I closed my eyes, wanting to soak in every second of this perfect moment. The scent of his cologne, the feel of his hand on my back, the soft music washing over us. This was my life now. This was my husband. And then, the moment shattered. A voice cut through the air, sharp and loud, yet it was a whisper that carried across the silent room. It came from the edge of the dance floor. I opened my eyes. It was a woman I recognized from photos Mark had shown me once, a long time ago. It was Clara. Her face was twisted with something that looked like fury, or maybe pain. She was looking right at Mark. Her voice was a venomous whisper shout that sliced through the romantic music. He never signed the divorce. The words hung in the air for a second. The band, seeing the commotion, trailed off. The music stopped. One instrument after another fell silent until there was nothing left but a ringing in my ears. The entire crowd, all our friends, all our family, went dead silent. Every single eye in that room was on us. On me, on Mark, and on the woman who had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my perfect day. I felt Mark's body go stiff in my arms. I looked up at his face, and the happy, loving groom from moments before was gone. In his place was a stranger, a man with panic and fear in his eyes. The silence stretched on, a thick, suffocating blanket of shock and confusion. And in that silence, my new life, the one that had just begun, fell apart. My first thought was that she was lying. It had to be a lie. This was the act of a jealous ex-wife, a desperate attempt to ruin our happiness. I pulled back from Mark, my hands still on his arms. I looked into his eyes, searching for reassurance. I wanted him to laugh it off, to tell everyone she was crazy, to have security escort her out so we could get back to our perfect day. "Mark?" I said. My voice was barely a whisper. He did not look at me. His eyes were locked on Clara, who stood there with a triumphant, bitter smile on her face. "Clara, what are you doing here?" he said, his voice tight with anger. "I am just telling your new wife the truth," Clara said, her voice dripping with poison. "He is still my husband, legally." A murmur went through the crowd. I could feel the stares of 100 people burning into my skin. My mother was standing up from her table, her face a mask of horror. My father was right behind her, his hand on her arm. I looked back at Mark, my grip on his arms tightening. "Mark, tell me she is lying," I pleaded. I needed to hear him say it. I needed him to fix this. "She is crazy, Anna," he said, finally looking at me. But his eyes darted away a second later. He could not hold my gaze. "She is obsessed. She has been harassing me for years. This is just her latest stunt." That felt like a real explanation. It made sense. An obsessed ex. I had heard stories like that before. I wanted to believe it so badly. My heart was pounding in my chest, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. "Then tell her to leave," I said, my voice shaking. "Get her out of here." Mark turned back to Clara. "You need to leave, now," he commanded. Clara just laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "Oh, I will leave," she said. "But not before everyone here knows you are a bigamist. You can check the court records. Case number 7345B. There is no final decree. Because you never sent in your signed papers. You told me you never would." She said the case number so easily. It sounded so specific, so real. A new wave of cold dread washed over me. Why would she know a case number if she was just making it all up? My mind was spinning. The room felt hot and small, like the walls were closing in. "That is a lie," Mark shouted. His voice was too loud, too defensive. "I signed everything years ago. It must be a clerical error. You probably hid the papers yourself." "Ask him to show you the decree, Anna," Clara said, her eyes now on me. They were filled with a strange kind of pity. "He can't, because it does not exist. He is married to me, and to you. I wonder what your God would think about that." She gestured toward the direction of the church where we had just made our sacred vows. The mention of God, of our vows, felt like a physical blow. The white dress I was wearing suddenly felt like a costume, a lie. I let go of Mark and took a step back. I needed space. I needed to breathe. My father started moving toward us. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. He was a calm man, but I could see the rage simmering in his eyes. "It is nothing, sir," Mark said, trying to sound respectful and in control, but his voice cracked. "It is a misunderstanding. My ex-wife is unwell. She is trying to cause trouble." "It is not a misunderstanding," Clara insisted. "He is a liar. He has been lying to both of us." I looked from Mark's panicked face to Clara's confident one. Someone was lying. My whole body screamed that it was her. But my mind, a small, cold part of my mind, was starting to ask questions. Why did Mark look so scared instead of just angry? Why did he keep avoiding my eyes? Why did he never want to talk about the divorce in any detail? He had always just said it was handled. Mark? I said, my voice stronger now. Look at me. Swear to me that you signed those papers and you are divorced from her. He turned to me, his face pleading. Anna, of course I did. I swear. On my life. On our life together. This is just a nightmare she has created for us. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I could not let him touch me. Not while this horrible, ugly doubt was crawling all over me. The silence in the room was deafening. Our guests were frozen, watching this drama unfold like a play. This was not a play. This was my life. Then we will clear it up, I said, surprised at the calmness in my own voice. On Monday morning, we will go to the courthouse, you and me, and you will get a copy of the final divorce decree. And you will show it to me. And then we will call every single person in this room and tell them it was all a horrible lie on her part. Mark's face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked trapped. That was the moment I knew. In the space of that heartbeat, in the flicker of sheer terror in his eyes, I knew she was telling the truth. He had not signed the papers. My husband was already married to someone else. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. The sounds of the room rushed back in, a distorted wave of whispers and gasps. I saw my mother crying. I saw Sarah hurrying toward me, her face etched with concern. I saw Mark, my Mark, looking not at me but at the exit, as if he was planning his escape. Clara had done her damage. She gave one last, sorrowful look at me, and then she turned and walked away. No one stopped her. As she left, a path cleared for her through our stunned guests. The doors swung shut behind her, leaving a gaping silence in her wake. Mark finally seemed to find his voice again. Anna, baby, let's go somewhere private. We can talk about this, he said, reaching for me again. Do not touch me, I said. The words came out cold and sharp. I did not recognize my own voice. I turned and looked at the crowd. All these people who had come to celebrate our love. Their faces were a blur of pity, confusion, and morbid curiosity. I felt a hot flush of shame creep up my neck. My perfect day, my beautiful wedding, had been turned into a public spectacle, a humiliating joke. The wedding is over, I announced to the room, my voice shaking but clear. Please, everyone, go home. Then I turned, my beautiful white dress feeling heavy as stone, and I walked away from Mark. I walked past my parents, past Sarah, past the dance floor where I had been so happy just minutes before. I did not know where I was going. I just knew I had to get away from him. I had to get away from the lie I had just married. Sarah caught up with me in the hallway leading to the bridal suite. Anna, wait, she said, grabbing my arm gently. Tears were streaming down my face now. Hot, angry, humiliated tears. Did you see his face, Sarah? I choked out. She was telling the truth. He lied to me. We do not know that for sure, she said softly, but she did not sound convinced. She was just trying to be a good friend. Yes, we do, I said, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. I saw it. He is not divorced. He married me anyway. What kind of person does that? She pulled me into a hug, and I just sobbed. I cried for the beautiful wedding that was now a disaster. I cried for the man I thought I knew. I cried for my own stupidity, for believing him so blindly. The beautiful dream had ended, and I was wide awake in the wreckage. My father found us a few minutes later. He looked 10 years older. Anna, your mother and I are taking you home, he said, his voice firm. What about Mark? I asked, my voice muffled by Sarah's shoulder. He can talk to my lawyer, my father said grimly. He is not coming anywhere near you tonight. And so my wedding night was spent not in a romantic hotel suite with my new husband, but in my childhood bedroom, with my best friend holding my hand while I cried myself to sleep. The white dress was crumpled on a chair in the corner, a sad reminder of a day that had started with so much promise and ended in utter devastation. The silence that had fallen over the reception hall was nothing compared to the silence in my heart. It was a cold, empty void where love and trust used to be. And in that void, a single, terrifying question echoed. What do I do now? The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a heart that felt like a lead weight in my chest. For a split second, I thought it had all been a terrible dream. Then the memories came flooding back. Clara's voice, the silenced music, the look on Mark's face, the pity in everyone's eyes. It was all real. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand. I looked at the screen. 37 missed calls from Mark, a dozen more from his parents, over 50 text messages. I could not bring myself to read them. I just turned the phone off and let it fall back onto the table. Sarah was already awake, sitting in the chair by the window. She had a cup of coffee in her hand. She gave me a small, sad smile. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like an idiot," I said, my voice hoarse. "A complete and total idiot." "You are not an idiot," she said firmly. "You were in love. You trusted him. That is not your fault. It is his." "He swore to me, Sarah," I said, sitting up. "He looked me in the eye and swore he was divorced. How could he do that? How could he stand up in a church in front of God and everyone and marry me when he was already married?" "I do not know," she said, shaking her head. "Men like that, there is something broken inside them. They do not think like we do." We sat in silence for a while. I felt numb, hollowed out. My parents came in a little later. My mom brought me breakfast, but I could not eat. My dad sat on the edge of my bed. "I spoke to Mark's father this morning," he said, his voice quiet. "He is ashamed. He said they had no idea. He said Mark has always been good at hiding things." "Hiding things?" I asked. "This is not like hiding a bad grade on a report card. He committed a crime. Bigamy is a crime, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," my dad confirmed. "And we are going to talk to a lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. My friend from the firm, Robert, he is the best at family law. He will know what to do." The thought of lawyers and legal proceedings made me feel sick. Just yesterday, I was planning a honeymoon. Now I was facing an annulment and possibly a criminal case. "What did Mark say?" I asked, dreading the answer. "His father said Mark is claiming it is all a misunderstanding, a paperwork issue that Clara is blowing out of proportion to hurt him," my dad reported. "He is sticking to his story." Of course he was. Mark was a master of spinning stories. He could make you believe anything. He had made me believe he loved me, that he was my future. I had fallen for it completely. "I need to know for sure," I said, a new resolve hardening inside me. "I need to see the proof with my own eyes." "Robert will handle that, honey," my mom said gently. "You do not need to put yourself through that." "No, I do," I insisted. "I need to know. I cannot just take someone else's word for it. Not anymore. I need to see the court records myself." My dad looked at me, and I saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. He nodded slowly. "All right, we will find out how to do that." The rest of the day passed in a fog. My parents handled everything. They called the caterers, the band, the venue. They dealt with the guests who called to express their sympathy or, more likely, their curiosity. I stayed in my room with Sarah. We watched old movies and tried not to talk about it, but the subject hung in the air between us, a massive, unspoken weight. That evening, my phone rang again. I had turned it back on, hoping for, I do not know what. An apology? A confession? It was not Mark. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" I said. "Is this Anna?" A woman's voice asked. It was a voice I recognized. It was Clara. I froze. My heart started hammering against my ribs again. "Who is this?" I asked, even though I knew. "It is Clara, Mark's wife," she said. The words were like a slap. "I know you probably hate me right now, and I do not blame you. But I thought you deserved to know the truth." "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Why would you do that? At my wedding? There was a pause on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, filled with a weariness that sounded genuine. Because it was the only way to make anyone listen. He has been lying to me for years. He told me he was on a long business trip. I found out about the wedding from a mutual friend 2 days ago. I tried to call him, to talk to him, but he blocked my number. I came to the church, tried to talk to him before the ceremony. But his groomsmen would not let me near him. They said he did not want to see me. It was my last resort. I am sorry for your humiliation. I truly am. But he had to be stopped. Her story sounded plausible. It painted a picture of Mark that was even darker than I had imagined. A man who would lie so casually, so completely, to everyone in his life. He told me you were obsessed, I said, repeating his accusation. She let out a short, bitter laugh. That is what he tells everyone. It is his go-to excuse. The crazy ex-wife. It is an easy story for people to believe. But it is not true. I wanted the divorce as much as he did. Or at least, I thought he did. He was the one who stalled. He was the one who never filed the final papers. Every time my lawyer contacted his, there was a new excuse. A lost document. A signature needed. A delay at the court. It went on for 2 years until I just gave up chasing him. My mind flashed back to all the times I had asked Mark about the divorce. His answers had always been vague. It is all taken care of, he would say. Just some final red tape. I had accepted it without question. I felt a fresh wave of shame. How could I have been so naive? Why? I asked her. Why would he not sign the papers? What did he gain from staying married to you? There was another long silence. That, she said finally, is the question you need to ask him. There is a reason. With Mark, there is always a reason, and it is never a good one. Thank you for calling, I said, my voice flat. I have to go. One more thing, she said quickly. Do not let him talk his way out of this. He will try. He is good at it. He will make you feel like you are the crazy one. Do not believe a word he says. Trust the paperwork. Only the paperwork. I hung up the phone. Her words echoed in my head. Trust the paperwork. It was the same thing I had told my parents. It was the only thing that felt real in this whole mess. The next day, Monday, felt like the longest day of my life. My dad had arranged a meeting with his lawyer friend Robert for the afternoon. But first, I had to face Mark. He had sent me a text message that I could not ignore. Anna, I am outside your parents' house. Please just give me 5 minutes to explain. I love you. Against my better judgment and my parents' wishes, I agreed to see him. I needed to see his face when he lied to me again. I needed to hear the excuses for myself. I met him on the front porch. My dad stood just inside the screen door, a silent, watchful guardian. Mark looked terrible. His eyes were red-rimmed and he had not shaved. He looked like a man whose world had fallen apart. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of pity for him. Then I remembered why we were here. Anna, he started, his voice thick with emotion. I am so sorry. I am so sorry for what she did. What she did? I repeated, my voice cold. She did not marry me under false pretenses, Mark. You did. It is not what you think, he pleaded, taking a step closer. It is a technicality, a stupid piece of paper. It does not change how I feel about you. It does not change the vows we made. It changes everything, I said, my voice rising. Our vows are meaningless if you are not legally able to make them. Our marriage is a lie. No, it is not, he insisted. I love you. You are my wife. We will fix this. I have already called my lawyer. He is filing an emergency motion to get the decree finalized. It will be done by the end of the week. This will all just be a bad memory. He sounded so sincere. The old Mark, the one who could always make everything okay. But I could see the desperation behind his eyes. He was not sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got caught. "Why, Mark?" I asked, the question that had been haunting me. "Why did you not sign the papers years ago? Just tell me the truth." He sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "It is complicated. It involves some shared assets, some investments Clara and I had. My lawyer said it was better to wait for tax reasons. It was just business. It had nothing to do with you and me. I was going to get it done before the wedding, I swear. I just ran out of time." Tax reasons, shared assets. It sounded plausible enough. A boring adult reason for a stupid mistake. But it did not feel right. It felt too easy, too neat. It felt like another one of his stories. "I do not believe you," I said quietly. His face crumpled. "Anna, please. You have to believe me. I will do anything to fix this. We can go on our honeymoon. We can forget any of this ever happened. We can even have another ceremony, a private one, just for us, once the paperwork is sorted." He was offering me the dream back. He was trying to patch up the nightmare and pretend it was still a fairy tale. A part of me, a small, weak part, wanted to accept it. I wanted to go back to being the happy bride, to believe in the man I loved. But Clara's voice was in my head. "Do not let him talk his way out of this. Trust the paperwork." "I am seeing a lawyer this afternoon," I told him. "He is going to check the court records. He is going to find out the truth." The look on Mark's face shifted again. The pleading was gone, replaced by a flicker of anger. "So that is it? You are not even going to give me a chance? You are going straight to a lawyer like this is some kind of battle?" "You made it a battle, Mark," I said, my resolve hardening with every word he spoke. "You lied to me. You humiliated me and my family. This is not something we can just fix. This is something I have to survive." "So you believe her? A bitter, crazy woman you have never even met? You believe her over me?" he asked, his voice laced with indignation. "I believe the facts," I said. "And I am going to find them. Now I think you should leave." I turned and went back inside, shutting the door on his shocked face. My dad put his arm around my shoulders. "You did the right thing," he said. I did not feel like I had done the right thing. I just felt broken. But as I stood there, leaning against my father, a tiny spark of something new ignited within me. It was not hope. It was anger. A cold, hard anger that was starting to burn away the grief and the shame. Mark had made a fool of me. He had used me. And I was not going to let him get away with it. The fairy tale was over. It was time to wake up and face the monster. The lawyer's office was intimidating. It was all dark wood and leather-bound books. Robert, my father's friend, was a kind-faced man with sharp, intelligent eyes. He listened patiently as I recounted the whole horrible story, from the first dance to my conversation with Clara and my confrontation with Mark that morning. My dad sat beside me, a silent pillar of support. When I finished, Robert leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Well," he said, his voice calm and measured, "this is quite a mess, but it is not an unsalvageable one." "What do we do first?" my dad asked. "The first step is to verify the facts," Robert said, looking at me. "As you rightly insisted, Anna, we need to confirm the status of his divorce. I have already had my paralegal pull the online docket for the case number Clara gave you." He slid a piece of paper across the desk. I picked it up with a trembling hand. It was a printout from the county court website. There it was in black and white. Mark Jennings versus Clara Jennings, case number 7345B. I scanned down the list of filings. Complaint for divorce, answer and counterclaim, motion for temporary support. And then, near the bottom, the last entry, dated almost 2 years ago. Awaiting final judgment pending submission of signed marital settlement agreement. There was nothing after it. No final judgment, no decree of divorce. It was exactly as Clara had said. The case was just sitting there, open and unresolved. Seeing it in print made it brutally real. All of Mark's excuses about clerical errors and lost papers evaporated. This was not a mistake. This was deliberate. "So it is true," I whispered, feeling the air leave my lungs. "He is still married to her." "Legally, yes," Robert confirmed gently. "Which means your marriage to him is void. It is not a valid marriage in the eyes of the law." The word void echoed in my head. It was such a harsh, empty word. My wedding, my vows, my marriage, all of it was void. Nothing. "What does that mean for me?" I asked. "It means we file for an annulment on the grounds of bigamy," Robert explained. "It is a straightforward process when the evidence is this clear. We will file the petition tomorrow. The marriage will be declared null as if it never happened." As if it never happened. The thought was both a relief and a profound sadness. I wanted to erase the humiliation, but erasing the day also meant erasing the memory of the happiness I had felt, however fleeting and false it had been. "And what about Mark?" my dad asked, his voice tight. "What are the consequences for him?" As Anna said, bigamy is a crime. "It is," Robert agreed. "It is a felony in this state. We can, and I would advise that we should, report this to the district attorney's office. They would then decide whether to press charges." The idea of Mark facing criminal charges, possibly even jail time, was dizzying. Part of me wanted him to pay for what he did, to face the most severe consequences possible. Another part of me, the part that had loved him, shied away from the idea of being the one to send him to prison. "Let's focus on the annulment first," I said quietly. "I need to get this marriage erased. Then we can talk about the other thing." Robert nodded in understanding. "Of course. The annulment is the priority. We will need to serve him with the papers. It might get ugly. He will likely contest it and stick to his story about it being a mistake." "He will," I said. "He will lie and try to charm his way out of it. He will try to make me look like I am overreacting." "Then we will need more than just the court docket," Robert said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "We need to understand why. Why would a man who is planning a new life with a new wife deliberately remain married to his first wife? His explanation about taxes and assets sounds thin. There is usually a more compelling reason for this kind of deception." He was echoing the same question Clara had raised, the question that had been nagging at me. "Why?" "Clara said I should ask him that," I recalled. "She said with Mark, there is always a reason." "She is probably right," Robert said. "And finding that reason could be the key to shutting him down quickly and quietly. If we have leverage, he will be much more likely to agree to the annulment without a fight." "Leverage?" I asked. "Something he does not want made public," Robert explained. "Something that proves his intent to deceive you was not just a matter of procrastination, but a deliberate choice for a specific, selfish reason. We need to find out what he gained by staying married to Clara." The idea of digging into Mark's life felt invasive and ugly. But the alternative, a long, drawn-out court battle where he would publicly slander me and try to paint me as unstable, was even worse. "How do we do that?" I asked. "I can recommend a very good, very discreet private investigator," Robert said. "He can look into their shared finances, properties, any legal agreements they might have. If there is a hidden reason, he will find it." A private investigator. The whole situation felt like it was spiraling into a television drama. It did not feel like my life. But I knew it was the right move. Mark had built his life on a foundation of lies. The only way to protect myself was to uncover the truth, no matter how ugly it was. "Okay," I said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it. Hire the investigator. I want to know everything." My dad placed his hand over mine on the table. "We are with you all the way," he said. "Whatever it takes. Whatever it costs." I left Robert's office feeling strangely empowered. The shock and grief were still there, a heavy cloak around my shoulders. but now they were mixed with a sense of purpose. I was no longer just the victim in this story. I was going to be the one who uncovered the truth. I was going to be the one who took back control. Mark had underestimated me. He thought I was just a naive girl he could easily manipulate. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The next few days were a strange kind of limbo. Robert filed the petition for annulment. Mark was served with the papers. As expected, his lawyer responded immediately, denying the claim of bigamy and stating that the failure to finalize the divorce was a mutual oversight and a regrettable administrative error. It was a lie, but it was the story he was sticking to. Mark, for his part, launched a full-scale campaign to win me back. He sent flowers to my parents' house, dozens of them, with pleading notes attached. He left long, rambling voicemails where he cried and told me he could not live without me. He even showed up at my work, waiting for me in the lobby until my boss had to ask security to escort him out. Each attempt only strengthened my resolve. The more desperate he became, the more convinced I was that he was hiding something significant. I met with the private investigator Robert had recommended. His name was Mr. Harris, a quiet, serious man who looked more like an accountant than a detective. He listened to my story without expression, only nodding occasionally. "The key," he said when I was done, "is the money. In 99% of cases like this, it comes down to money." "That is what Mark claimed," I told him. "He said it was about taxes and shared assets." "That is the simple version he wants you to believe," Mr. Harris said. "The truth is usually more specific. A trust fund with a marriage clause. An insurance policy that pays out only to a spouse. An inheritance that is contingent on him remaining married. I will start by looking at their financials. It might take some time." I gave him all the information I had. Clara's full name, their last known shared address, the name of Mark's company. I also gave him the money for his retainer from a secret savings account my grandmother had left me. It felt good to be using my own money, to be taking action for myself. While Mr. Harris began his investigation, I tried to piece my life back together. Sarah was my rock. She came over every night after work. We would eat takeout and watch bad TV. She let me talk when I needed to talk and sat in comfortable silence with me when I did not. "Have you thought about what you will do if the investigator finds something really bad?" she asked me one night. "What could be worse than what has already happened?" I replied wearily. "I do not know," she said. "But men who are capable of this, they are capable of anything. Just be careful, Anna." Her words stayed with me. I started to look back on my 3 years with Mark, re-examining memories through this new, tainted lens. Little things that had seemed quirky or unimportant at the time now looked like red flags. The way he was always a little vague about his finances. The way he never wanted me to come to his office. The time I found an old bank statement with Clara's name on it, and he had snatched it away, saying it was just leftover paperwork he needed to shred. At the time, I had accepted his explanations. Now, I saw them as pieces of a puzzle I had been too blind to see. About a week after I hired him, Mr. Harris called me. "I have something," he said, his voice flat and professional. "I think you should come to my office." My heart started to pound. I drove to his office, my hands slick with sweat on the steering wheel. I was about to find out the why. I was about to learn the real reason for Mark's betrayal. Mr. Harris's office was small and tidy. He did not waste time with small talk. He laid a file on the desk between us. "It is a trust," he said, "from Clara's maternal grandmother. It was set up for Clara, but with a specific and rather old-fashioned stipulation." He slid a document toward me. It was a copy of a page from the trust agreement. He had highlighted a section. I leaned forward and read the words. "The annual income from this trust shall be distributed to my granddaughter, Clara Jennings, and her lawfully wedded husband, Mark Jennings, jointly, for the duration of their marriage. In the event of a legal divorce or the death of either party, the distribution shall cease and the principal of the trust shall be absorbed into the main family charitable foundation." I read it again, and a third time. The words swam before my eyes. An annual income. distributed jointly, for the duration of their marriage. How much? I whispered. How much is the annual income? Mr. Harris slid another piece of paper toward me. It was a copy of a bank statement for a joint checking account in the names of Mark Jennings and Clara Jennings. I saw the deposits, one every year on the same date in March. The amount made me gasp. $200,000 every year for the last 6 years. They have been receiving $200,000 a year, tax-free from this trust, Mr. Harris confirmed. And the only condition is that they remain legally married. The deception was so much bigger, so much colder and more calculated than I could have ever imagined. This was not a mistake. It was not a forgotten piece of paperwork. It was a long-term, deliberate fraud. He had not stayed married to her because of some complicated tax issue. He had stayed married to her for the money, for $200,000 a year. So, he was never going to divorce her, I said, the realization hitting me with the force of a physical blow. As long as that money was coming in, he would have stayed married to her forever. It appears that way, Mr. Arthur Harris said. He was trying to have it both ways. The money from Clara's trust and a new life with you. I looked at the bank statements again. I saw the deposits coming in, and I saw the withdrawals. Large, regular transfers from that joint account to another account. An account in Mark's name only. He was draining it, I said, my voice shaking with rage. He was taking the money from their joint account and moving it to his own. Most of it, yes, Mr. Harris confirmed. It seems he was giving Clara an allowance to keep her quiet, and keeping the lion's share for himself. Suddenly, Clara's outburst at the wedding made perfect sense. It was not the act of a woman scorned because of love. It was the act of a business partner who was being cheated. I think I know what happened, I said, the pieces clicking into place. The last payment would have been in March. He probably told her he was cutting her out or reducing her share. He got greedy, and she retaliated in the only way she knew how, by blowing up his new life. That would be a logical conclusion, Mr. Harris said. I sat there, staring at the documents. The proof. The leverage Robert had talked about. This was it. This was the weapon I needed. It was so much uglier than I had imagined, but it was also so much clearer. My relationship with Mark, my marriage, our entire future. It was all just collateral damage in his long con. He had not just lied to me. He had used me. I was the cover for his fraud. The respectable new wife who would make his life look normal, while he continued to secretly profit from his first marriage. The shame I had been feeling began to burn away. Replaced by a cold, hard fury. He had not just broken my heart. He had tried to make me an unwitting accomplice to his crime. He had gambled with my life, my reputation, and my future, all for money. What do I do with this? I asked Mr. Harris, my voice steady now. You give it to your lawyer, he said. This changes everything. His claim of an administrative error is now demonstrably false. He will not be able to fight the annulment. In fact, he will be desperate to make this all go away as quietly as possible. I gathered the papers, my hands no longer shaking. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The confusion was gone. The doubt was gone. All that was left was the cold, hard truth, and the knowledge of what I had to do next. He is not going to get away with this, I said, more to myself than to Mr. Harris. I am not going to let him make this go away quietly. Mark thought he had all the power. He thought he could control the narrative, control me. He was about to learn that the game had changed. I was not just a heartbroken bride anymore. I was the woman who held the proof of his entire fraudulent life in her hands, and I was going to use it. I walked out of the investigator's office and into the bright afternoon sun. For the first time since my wedding day, I felt like I could breathe again. The path forward was clear. It was not going to be easy, and it was not going to be pretty. But it was going to be on my terms. The time for crying was over. It was time for a reckoning. My next call was to Robert. I told him I had the proof. I could hear the surprise in his voice. That was fast, he said. Mr. E. Harris is very good at what he does. He is, I agreed. I have copies of a trust agreement and bank statements. It is a financial scheme, Robert. A big one. He stayed married to Clara for money. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. This is the leverage I was talking about, he said, his voice now sharp and focused. This is more than leverage. This is a motive. This proves intent to deceive. This blows his administrative error defense out of the water. What is our next move? I asked. We schedule a meeting, he said. With Mark and his lawyer, we present them with what we have. We do not file it with the court yet. We show them our hand and give them an opportunity to surrender. Surrender? I repeated. He will sign an agreement for the annulment uncontested. He will agree to pay all of your legal fees. And he will agree to a non-disclosure agreement that heavily favors you, preventing him from ever speaking about you or this situation publicly, Robert explained. In exchange, we agree not to release this financial information to the court as part of the annulment proceedings. What about the district attorney? I asked. What about the crime he committed? That is a separate issue, Robert said carefully. And it is your decision. We can use the threat of criminal charges as part of our leverage, or we can pursue them separately after the annulment is finalized. My advice is to secure your personal victory first. Get the annulment, get your life back. Then decide how much further you want to take it. It was sound advice. The most important thing was to untangle myself from Mark's web of lies as quickly and cleanly as possible. The rest could come later. Okay, I said. Schedule the meeting. The meeting was set for 2 days later at Robert's office. A neutral ground. The night before, I could barely sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. I felt a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. I was about to confront the man who had shattered my world, but this time, I was not the victim. I was the one with the power. Mark and his lawyer arrived first. I saw them in the waiting room when I walked in with Robert. Mark looked surprised to see me. He probably expected the lawyers to handle everything. He had lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked haggard. He stood up when he saw me, a hopeful, pleading look on his face. Anna, he said. I just looked at him, my face a blank mask. I did not say a word. I walked past him and into the conference room. Robert followed me. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. We sat on one side of the long, polished table. Mark and his lawyer, a slick-looking man named Mr. Davies, sat on the other. Mr. Davies started. My client is here in good faith, he said, his voice smooth. He deeply regrets the distress this administrative oversight has caused Ms. Thompson. He is prepared to do whatever is necessary to expedite the finalization of his prior divorce so that he and Anna can move forward with their lives together. I almost laughed out loud. He was still playing that game. Still pretending this was all a mistake that could be fixed and that our marriage had a future. Robert did not react. He simply opened his briefcase and took out a file. We appreciate that, he said calmly. However, our position is that this was not an administrative oversight, and there will be no moving forward together. He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was the copy of the trust document, with the marriage clause highlighted. I watched Mark's face. He glanced at the paper. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly. The color drained from his face. He looked up at me, a look of pure, cornered panic in his eyes. He knew. He knew that I knew. Mr. Davies picked up the paper and read it. His smooth demeanor faltered for a second. He cleared his throat. I am not sure what this is supposed to imply, he said, trying to regain his composure. It implies motive, Robert said, his voice like ice. He then slid the bank statements across the table. And this is the proof. $200,000 a year. Contingent on our clients remaining married. funds which your client then systematically transferred into his own personal accounts. Mr. Davies stared at the bank statements. Mark did not even look at them. He just stared at me, his mouth slightly open. The mask was gone. All the charm, all the sincerity, all the fake regret. It had all vanished. All that was left was the ugly, greedy truth. This is an outrageous invasion of my client's privacy. Mr. Davies blustered, but his voice lacked conviction. This information was obtained illegally. It was obtained by a licensed private investigator through perfectly legal means, Robert countered smoothly, and it will be perfectly admissible in court. Not only in the annulment proceedings, but also, potentially, in a criminal trial for bigamy, and perhaps even a fraud investigation, should Clara's family be made aware of how the terms of their grandmother's trust are being violated. He let that hang in the air. The threat was clear. We would not just expose him in family court. We could ruin him completely. Criminal charges, a lawsuit from Clara's wealthy and influential family. It would be the end of him. Mark finally spoke. His voice was a hoarse whisper. "Anna, please, do not do this. This is the moment. The present tense confrontation I've been building toward. My feelings are immediate." I look at him, and all the love I ever felt for him is gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I am not the girl he married. I am the woman who is about to unmake him. Do what? Mark? I ask. My voice is steady. It does not shake. Tell the truth? Is that what you do not want me to do? Because you have not told the truth once since this all began. It is not what it looks like, he says, his eyes pleading with me, trying to cast that old spell one last time. What does it look like to you then? I press. Because to me, it looks like you stayed married to another woman for her money. It looks like you lied to me for 3 years. It looks like you stood in a church and made false vows to me so you could have a wife at home while you kept your business arrangement going on the side. Am I missing something? His lawyer, Mr. Davies, puts a hand on his arm. Mark, do not say anything. But Mark shakes him off. He is looking only at me. I was going to tell you, he says, his voice breaking. I was going to end it with Clara. I just needed more time. I love you, Anna. That part was never a lie. Love does not look like this, I say, my voice dropping to a near whisper, but it cuts through the room. Love is not a lie that costs $200,000 a year. You did not love me. You were using me. I was your cover story, your alibi, the respectable wife who made you look like a normal guy. Did you ever love me? Or was I just the next phase of your financial plan? He flinches as if I have physically struck him. He has no answer, because we both know it is the truth. Robert steps in, his tone all business now. Here is our offer, he says to Mr. Davies. Your client will sign a consent agreement for the annulment. He will not contest it in any way. He will pay all of Ms. Thompson's legal fees, including the cost of the private investigator. He will also sign a stringent non-disclosure agreement. In return, these financial documents will not be entered into the public record as part of the annulment filing. Mr. Davies looks at the papers, then at his client's shattered face. He knows he has lost. There is no way to fight this. And what about criminal charges? He asks quietly. For now, Robert says, Ms. Thompson is focused on dissolving this fraudulent marriage and moving on with her life. Her future actions will depend heavily on your client's complete and immediate cooperation. It is a warning, a promise. If Mark fights, if he makes this any more difficult, I will not hesitate to destroy him completely. Mark slumps in his chair, defeated. He looks like a balloon that has been pricked. All the air, all the arrogance has gone out of him. He nods slowly, not even looking at his lawyer. Okay, he whispers. Whatever she wants. I stand up. I have seen enough. Send the papers to my lawyer, I say to Mr. Davies. I expect them signed by the end of the day. Then I turn and walk out of the room without a backward glance. I do not want to see his face anymore. I do not want to hear his voice. I just want him to be gone from my life. Walking out of that building, I feel a profound sense of release. It is not happiness. It is not joy. It is something quieter, deeper. It is the feeling of a great weight being lifted from my shoulders. The fight I had been dreading was over before it even began. The truth had been a more powerful weapon than any legal argument. The paperwork was signed and delivered that afternoon. The annulment was processed by the court in record time. A few weeks later, a judge signed the final decree. My marriage to Mark was officially declared null and void. Legally, it had never happened. But it had happened. I still had the memories. I still had the scars. But I also had a newfound strength I never knew I possessed. I had faced the worst betrayal of my life, and I had not only survived it, but I had fought back and won. The aftermath was quiet. Mark disappeared from my life completely. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he had moved out of state. His parents sent my parents a check for their half of the wedding expenses, along with a short, formal letter of apology. I never heard from them, or from him again. I had one final piece of business to attend to. I thought long and hard about it. What did I owe Clara? She had, in her own selfish way, saved me from a life of lies. But she was also a willing participant in the fraud. In the end, I decided the truth needed to come out. Not for revenge, but for justice. Robert drafted an anonymous letter to the trustees of Clara's Family Foundation. The letter laid out the facts of the arrangement between Mark and Clara. It included copies of the trust document and the bank statements showing the annual payments and Mark's subsequent withdrawals. I did not know what they would do with the information, but I had a feeling Clara's easy life was about to come to an end. A few months later, Sarah showed me an article in the business section of the local paper. The headline was about a major local family foundation suing two relatives for fraud and misappropriation of trust funds. The names mentioned were Clara Jennings and Mark Jennings. The article detailed how they had allegedly conspired to violate the terms of a trust for personal enrichment. They were being sued for the return of all the money they had received over the years. Over $1 million. I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. It was not my fight anymore, but it was a fitting end to the story. Their greed had been their downfall. They had built a house of cards on a foundation of lies, and it had all come crashing down. Life moved on. The humiliation of the wedding faded. People stopped talking about it. My friends and family, the ones who mattered, had surrounded me with love and support. I went back to work. I started dating again, cautiously at first. I was more guarded, more discerning, but not broken. One evening, about a year after the wedding that wasn't, I was having dinner with Sarah. "You know," she said, swirling the wine in her glass, "I have never seen you stronger than you were during all of that. You were incredible." I did not feel incredible, I admitted. I felt like I was falling apart. "Maybe," she said, "but you did not. You stood up, you fought, and you won. He thought you were weak, Anna. He thought he could fool you. He picked the wrong woman." I smiled. She was right. He had picked the wrong woman. He had thought I was just a pretty naive girl who would be a convenient addition to his life. He never bothered to look deeper. He never saw the strength that was there all along, waiting for a reason to come out. I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that true strength is not about never falling down. It is about how you get back up. I learned that trust is a precious gift, and it should be earned, not given away freely. And I learned that sometimes the most perfect-looking dream can be a cover for the most ugly reality. I never forgot my wedding day. It was not the blur of happiness everyone had promised. It was the day the music stopped. It was the day of the dead silence. But it was also the day I woke up. The day I started to find my own voice. And for that, in a strange way, I will always be grateful. The fairy tale ended in disaster, but my real life, the one built on truth and strength, was just beginning. They had tried to make me a footnote in their sordid story, but I ended up being the author of their final chapter. They finally learned what it feels like to lose everything. And I finally learned what it feels like to be free.